thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. The meeting will be starting shortly. While we wait, let's learn more about Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
Greetings, everyone. Another fine year is upon us. And what I'm going to do to start is, Russ had suggested this. I thought it was a good idea. Sort of an old friend of the BRC, Ann Sermon, really recently passed away. She was on the BRC for a number of years, as well as on the select board. So I would like to have a moment of silence in Ann's memory. She was a valued member of this community. Thank you. She will be missed. What I'd like to also do, we're not on TV tonight, but I'd still like to go around and introduce ourselves for the record. I'm Bob Kelly, the current chair of the Select Board. Chris?
Chris Suter.
Corey Stevens, Finance Director.
Melissa Roy, Assistant Town Manager.
Joanna Bartel, Recording Secretary. Julie Gilman, Select Board.
Eduardo Red Contreras, new member of the Budget Committee.
Andrew Elliott, also new member.
Kathy Corsick, old member.
Young at heart.
Seasoned member.
Yes, Anthony's one. I go by Ton. I live on 7 Marlborough Street. Old member, yep.
Guys, you're long time members.
Long time. Members
You
of
guys
every
wanna
committee, no-
go?
No, go, well, I'll wait till you
Oh,
get. you-
okay. Judy Rowan, Prentice Way, and often Police and Fire Subcommittee.
Anna Grazier, Warren Avenue.
Nancy Belanger, Select Board.
And Nico Papacosti, Select Board.
Thank you to the 3 members of the Select Board who have joined us. Appreciate it.
Is somebody
So-
zooming in? Sorry.
I'm sorry?
Is somebody zooming in?
Someone was supposed to zoom in.
Yeah, Chris Sigmund actually suggested, is he, did he
I don't
contact
see
you?
don't see anyone on, so I didn't hear.
Well, keep an eye out for it. He
He might pop
had
up.
a COVID exposure this week, so he's trying to work that out, but maybe he forgot. So we do have some changes this year. As you may know, Corey Stevens, who has been with us for a number of years, is now the town finance director.
Yay!
Which is, I'm sorry to say, is great for the town. And it's probably good for the committee because he's very knowledgeable about the finances and is going to be a crackerjack addition to the team. So, that was good. And Nancy Belanger is now on the select board, which is great for Nancy and for the board. And Mark Fabian, who is with us for a year, is taking a sabbatical in Costa Rica for a year, starting August 1st. So
Oh
he
my
won't be
God.
with us
Nice.
either.
Yeah.
But we do have 2 new members, Andy Elliott, who is with us, as well as Ed Contreras. Ed actually had weighed in last year, about a week before we started our deliberations. So it was sort of at the 11th hour and thought that it might be worth just doing it this year. But welcome you 2, and hopefully we'll get you up to speed quickly. So first order of business is nomination and election of a new chair and vice chair for the year FY 2023. So I'll entertain motions for the position of chair of the committee at this time.
I nominate Bob Kelly for chair.
Second.
Thank you. Any other nominations? Seeing none, all those in favor of having me serve another year signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
You're welcome.
I will. Don't speak too fast. 'Cause I will be nominating Chris Suter to serve another year as my vice chair.
Second.
Any other nominations for vice chair? Seeing none, all those in favor of having Chris serve as the vice chair of the committee for FY '23 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
I feel guilty because there's really nothing. Just in case you get run over, I have to be ready.
That's
morbid.
You ran it once, didn't you, last year?
The meetings?
Yeah.
Oh, I think maybe once, and it was not
For a couple of
poor
minutes.
show.
Yeah.
I was at home
It was
watching
very
it.
memorable.
I was at home watching this on TV. I just decided to take a break, and Chris was flailing so bad I had to cut
Yeah.
half an hour. And that's enough.
Yank
That's
me out of
enough.
the chair.
That's enough.
I'll take it.
So, most of you are familiar with the drill here, but in general, in September, we will be getting an updated budget. We'll have Melissa and Corey go over where we are so far in 2022 in a minute. But we'll get the budgets in September, as always. And we'll be working on the general government subcommittee again, and unfortunately Nancy's not going to be along to help her, but maybe off the grid. And so you'll probably be going earlier, I would imagine. You have
Yes,
to set-
as early as I can, yes.
But at any rate, so we'll meet in September and discuss get Russ's take on the budget, just sort of an overview. And then we'll start meeting as subcommittees in earnest in October and early November, and having very regular meetings in the evening generally with that one all-day meeting. And I'll go over the meeting schedule in a minute as well. But should work fairly seamlessly. And for you two new gentlemen, if there are any questions, certainly feel free to weigh in with anybody here. Most of the people here on the committee have been with us at least 5 years, if not close to 10. So a lot of experience, and there are, as always, there are no bad questions. Just questions that aren't answered or aren't asked. So we would appreciate any weigh-in and any questions and comments as we proceed. So Melissa and Corey, why don't you go over really quickly where we are in FY22 so far, and if there are any significant items looming on the horizon from your perspective.
No handouts. I don't think so. Is there a handout or no? You sent them.
I did not send any handout. They're just going to give us a verbal update.
Okay, all right.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the kind words. I'm going to miss saying yay and nay this year.
You can.
I can train myself, yeah. So, Mr. Chair, I had somewhat of a little bit of a deep dive into things and where we stood, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
You can shut me down and give me the
No.
hook at any time. So, hello to everyone. Good to see you all again. So just to frame up sort of, where we are for 2022 and remind ourselves of kind of how we got here. Let's start with the election day. We had 3 operating budgets, general, water, and sewer fund, each passed with 72% approval rating, which was generally in line with last year. General fund a little bit lower than last year's result. We had voted on 3 collective bargaining agreements, one for police, one for fire, and one for SEIU. Each of those passed and went into effect for 7/1, so wage increases and the rest of the bargaining agreements went into effect 7/1. We had 3 bond issues on the ballot in March: Webster Ave, 10 Hampton Road, and West Side Drive water sewer improvements. Each of those passed as well. And all of the various other warrant articles where we raise and appropriate through taxation approved, with the exception of the DPW garage, which did not pass. So swinging into to gear in 2022, we had a successful borrowing and leasing season. We bonded 10 Hampton Road and groundwater exploration for a total of $2.25 million. Those were 10-year bonds with a true interest rate of 2.63%. I believe that's slightly higher than in past years, and probably trending that way as we move into the future. Yeah. We did lease purchases on engine number 5, as well as the SCBA equipment. We did the engine on a 10-year, SCBA on a 7-year for a total of about $965,000, and we borrowed at 3%.
Do you know when that engineer's going to come in? 'Cause
Oh,
it
I-
had
you know,
a lead
I've-
time of like 18 months or something.
Yeah, and I think like late next fall. I
Yeah,
don't
they
think
said
it's spilled
it was
into
about an
24,
18-month
but
bill.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Just wondered if you'd heard.
No. Eric was bantering the time around when I was starting, but there are lots of things going around in my head, so I didn't quite clue into it. I don't think I heard 2024, though. So that's where we stand on, borrowing and getting those types of things off the ground. We've gotten several good pieces of information, good news on the aid and funding sources going this year and into next year. We got word from the state this summer that they are starting their state aid grant, or SAG funding again, and that goes towards debt relief on our wastewater treatment plant. I forget the overall number. Is it
So over the course of it, it will be 18 million.
18 million? So in FY '22, sometime between July and the end of the year, we'll receive the '22 award and the '23 award for $1.39 million. And then starting in 2023, we'll get the FY '24 award, which is $1.08 million. And that will go for,
Now, do we use that directly to pay off the principal in the year that it comes in, so that maybe the bond will be shortened? Or is that strategy still being discussed?
I don't know the answer to that.
That's what I was gonna say. I haven't got that far yet.
I guess I would assume it goes towards, it goes towards the payment each year, but I don't know.
Because the
if-
payment's like around $4 million.
Right,
And presumably, if we pay off the principal, then instead of a
yeah, and I'd,
20-year note, it's maybe 18.
yeah, and I'd let Russ speak to that, but I'll make a note that we kind of follow up and have that conversation, Bob, when we meet
That'd be
again.
great.
Yeah,
And they can't take away that funding once because it's every year. They can't say, okay, we're going to stop. Actually, if that's possible.
Well,
I mean,
they
they
can-
stopped it
Yeah, really.
once.
Yeah.
Huh?
They stopped it once.
Right, that's what I wonder,
Yeah.
if it's not a guarantee.
Right. We'll take it
I
when
think
we
getting
get it.
state funding probably isn't a guarantee, but I think we're looking good for a little bit. So hopefully we'll be
Every
through. Yeah.
million helps.
Yeah.
When you have to pay back 60.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tom?
Thanks, just to slow you down on that for just a second. So the sewage treatment plant was ballpark-ish 55 million or something like that, right?
right.
Was there ever a stag before that was taken away or not?
So I believe it was right around the year that we were ready to receive our first stag payment. We were on number 11 and they took 10. And we had expected them to take more than 10, and we were expecting to be part of that group, and then they stopped the program for, I don't know, a few years. And municipalities have been fighting to put it back ever since. And finally, this year, there was some success with that.
I see, so we just never received it yet. You were about to
Right, we were
receive it.
never.
That's right.
I
we-
will say that we convinced them to do the top 11.
Yes.
Top 11.
Because we were number 11.
Yeah.
So,
Right. And so the hope is that this accumulates to $18 million,
Right.
which comes off the 55 million that we're committed to.
exactly, which was sort of the expectation when the discussions on the plant being built were had.
Okay.
I think
thanks
you were
for
on the board
reminding
at
me.
that time, yeah.
Keep our fingers crossed. It keeps coming.
So you've talked about guarantees and the like, so conversely, there's no chance that they would increase it either, is there?
Less likely.
I'll let Julie speak to that. I think her direct quote was it may be less likely. I'm just hoping that they continue with what we're
Yeah.
expecting and our schedule
Yeah.
to get to 18 million.
Yeah.
But we'll never turn away extra. How's
Yeah.
that?
Right, and the onus of the question is when you're talking about the state aids and grants and so on, it's a priority for the state. Obviously, I'm just wondering, eventually, I'd like to get to know, what are the other state, SAGs or whatever, and how we're competing, because conceivably, I'd be curious to see how this funding compares to other big projects. As a member of, Southeast New Hampshire, I want to get to know what else is important. We know famous Mount Washington area, and San Juan probably has its own attention, but if you ever have the opportunity to share about those other big state attentive, projects, love to know about it.
We can definitely
Could
follow
I
up
just
with you.
ask people to speak up for those of us at the North Pole here?
Absolutely, Julie.
Are you
He
hearing-
was
are
just
you hearing-
asking if there's any information on state funding and what that looks like in our Seacoast region in general, if we would be willing to share it with him. So we'll see if we can gather that. Julie may have some information, I have maybe a little bit, and we'll see what we can get for you guys.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Anything else?
So just kind of going down the funding sources there, we got our second tranche of ARPA funds, roughly $800,000 to bring our total of $1.6 million now. And we'll be working on how we spend that money shortly.
And
We've also received
800,
800,000. The total was 1.6 million and perhaps a little bit more than that, but
So we were allocated 1.6 million to date. 863,000 has been allocated with a remaining of 736,374.
Not to put you on the spot, we had made some recommendations as a committee last year on where those funds might be apportioned in town. Do you know?
I can
if
tell
that-
you-
If that list was followed reasonably, or?
I'm going to be honest with you and tell you I can't remember what was on your list. I
That's
can
right, me
cer-
neither.
I can go back and look. I have the list of items that have been approved to date, if that would help you.
That would be.
Yeah.
All right. So we have the Winter Street BMP project through DPW for 42,000.
Yeah,
We
that was-
have the Pit Pocket Dam project for 185,000. We are using 420,000 to come up with the gap funding for the Swampscott sewer siphons. 30,000 to.
How much was that?
420,000.
Yeah, so that's to take what we had already allocated by a town meeting vote a few years ago, 2 years ago.
Plus, right, so plus that project, we got
Plus-
$600,000 in congressional directed spending from the federal
Separately.
government.
Right.
Separately.
Separately, yep. So that, the 420 was the leftover that the town had to come up with.
Excellent.
30,000 has been allocated for a reclassification study, wage and reclassification study for employees. 4,800 to have discussions on People GIS and our use of GIS and online mapping. 99,000 towards Great Bay Total Nitrogen General Permit, which I believe was one of the things on your list.
Yes.
You wanted to see it done. As well as various IT, purchase of a new IT server, Aristotle Insight, which is a software that scans logs for devices, penetration testing for 390, backup servers for IT at 1,500, PC replacements for 6,300, and then 6,400 for Munis transition that we're going through in August. So that is a subtotal of 863,000, and that's been approved to date for use of ARPA funds.
Can I have a question?
Absolutely.
What's Winter Street BMP? What's BMP?
best
Best
management
management
practices.
practices is a stormwater-related
Project?
improvement project. Or
Wasn't there talk about Winter Street also having an intersection improvement? How do these two things
They would,
mesh?
they wouldn't be related.
Okay.
Yeah, this is part of our stormwater management plan.
But if the road is reconfigured, wouldn't the stormwater,
That's been on the docket for a number of years. I'm not quite sure that's
I don't know where.
super high on the
yeah,
priority list.
not
It has
sure.
been talked about, but
it just came out of that most recent intersection study, so.
I don't think.
We can certainly follow up and get information for you.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yep.
Hey, Liz.
Sure.
Just wouldn't want to spend money on.
Absolutely. I don't think that's their intention to spend it to rip it out for,
Yeah.
for certain. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Excellent, thanks for that update.
No problem.
We had a few people joining us.
And you did get everything on the list,
Oh, good. I'm glad.
especially pickpocket Dan.
Yes. And
It's nice to not have anybody have to pay anything.
I will tell you real quick, because I know we all want to get in and out of here somewhat quickly tonight, but I will tell you that DPW has done a fantastic job also securing alternative funding for a lot of their projects that were on the warrant. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but we got congressional directed spending We've received, I always say the acronym wrong, state ARPA money, essentially, as well as some loan forgiveness. So they've worked really hard, and it's millions of dollars that we're talking about. It's not like a few $100,000. It's pretty significant.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for joining.
Can you hear us
Chris,
okay?
Chris Sigmund is a member of the committee, and as I mentioned, he had a COVID exposure, so thank you for joining in.
Thank you for not
Thanks for
joining.
having me.
Yeah, thank you for not.
Yeah, really.
So just to finish up on the additional funding we've learned about this year, this summer, we were made aware that we would be getting additional highway block grant and bridge repair money for about $570,000. Those funds will have restricted use towards bridge and road repair. And finally, we will be getting a 7.5% pension contribution towards police and fire pension from the state as well.
Excellent.
I've never seen New Hampshire so generous.
Yes.
Never heard of ARPA before either.
With regards to pension, is it a pension increase primarily due to the size of the staff, or is there a projection of increasing staff?
So this is the state, and I don't want to I don't want to say they had surplus, but they allowed, the town has to participate in 14% of an employee's salary. And for this group in police and fire, for a one-time only in FY23, they're allowing us to only contribute 7.5, which I believe they are picking up the other part of.
Right, the state always had paid part of it into the retirement system. About 8 years ago, they dumped it all on us. So the state no longer gave us anything. We paid the entirety of the police and fire pension fund. And we had a goal this year to reinstate the program so that we would be sharing the cost. And in the Senate, it went through the House and in the Senate, they said, let's just do it for 1 year. So,
Hopefully it will continue, but at least we'll take it for FY23.
Yep.
And that only affects our police and fire personnel. Just to bring everybody up to speed real quick on projects that were approved in March. For our Webster Ave pump station, we received $1.5 million in congressional directed spending through Senator Shaheen's office. We also received, Webster Ave, here we go. We also received $325,000 in loan forgiveness from the state of New Hampshire, and we got a local state ARPA grant of $1.395 million.
That's all on Webster.
That's all on Webster Ave.
Wow.
Yep. And then, so we're currently working on the easements for this project and should have a project update fairly soon on that. 10 Hampton Road. We did go ahead and purchase that property, so the town does now own it. We have submitted for a CBDG grant for $750,000. We won't know about that till December or January. We did request through Senator Shaheen's process for FY23 congressional directed spending for $270,000 to update the HVAC and make energy improvements to the building. We did make it through the New Hampshire part, so we are one of the projects that she has picked to bring down to DC to advocate. So now we need to see if we make it through DC, but we have made it through step 1. West Side Drive was passed for improvement design and engineering. This project, we expect to be potentially putting in the CIP for this upcoming FY23.
For construction.
For construction, yep. It was ranked number 2 in the FY22 stormwater infrastructure list, which meant that we would be eligible for some alternative funding, so we hope to look at that again. And let's see what else we have. The facilities assessment that was approved in March went out to bid. The bids came back not meeting what they were expecting, so they reevaluated, and they're going to look to go back out to bid again. And
What do you
rains.
mean not meeting the quality or the
I believe that it was the cost was not, so they have scaled down the scope in hopes to put that out to bid again. We have Rains Barn, Kristen with our Conservation and Sustainability Planner, went out for an RFP in March, didn't receive any responses, put it out again, received one, and then two companies after the fact to work with LCHIP. However, the committee and the bids aren't coming in correctly, so now she's refocusing to see if she can do a bid for the structural work only at this point. As you know, anybody that's tried to do any work, construction is really challenging, and there are some very specific and critical requirements to working with LCHIP. So you have to have a contractor that knows what they're doing. It's also a historic barn. So those are the updates with that, and I think that's all I have.
Great, lots of good stuff.
And then, sorry, excuse me, so coming up for FY '23, we'll be going to CIP. We will be putting forward for a public safety building. The cost to be, we're in the final stages of order of magnitude cost estimating right at the moment. We'll be potentially presenting a new surface water treatment plant design and engineering. That was also another project that made the list for alternative funding, potential alternative funding. A proposal for groundwater source development, intersection improvements, and potentially Planet Playground. So those are sort of the bigger items that could be brought through the CIP process.
As a sidebar on the public safety complex, we talked a little bit about that last year and some of the concepts. There have been a couple of public meetings, not public hearings, but public meetings this year that have described how the town and the architects have gone through the process. And I'll be working with Nico and Russ to try to get a special presentation for this committee, similar to what we did last year and the year before on big projects. That'll probably be sometime in October, and we'll, as we get some dates put aside, we'll be letting you know. But we'll get a full briefing on that, and it won't be just thrown in our lap in November.
I thought you could show it to us in December, come on.
That's usually the way we do it. Just say vote.
Can I, just a question regarding this excellent presentation and these numbers. Will we be receiving some kind of summary, or is that too much to ask of particularly the, some of the encouraging numbers of
We can
fundings
certainly
that
do
we
that,
received?
and I.
Would that be too much to ask?
No, that's fine, we can do that, and I do apologize, Russ had wanted to be here, he had a family emergency tonight, so.
Yeah.
But we can certainly do that for your next meeting.
Yeah, so maybe unless I'm missing something,
So
I'm
grant
remembering that
funding.
Russ would usually have
Yeah, a
like a
handout.
whole thing, right?
Yeah, his father passed away this morning.
Oh, all right.
So he is,
But something
will put something together.
that approximates
Sure.
what he used to do,
Mhm.
particularly just to share the good news with
Sure.
the public about
you don't have to go
some of
into
this funding.
a special, just send an email out.
Just
to
with
the
some
committee
bullet points and
with an
stuff.
overview would
Absolutely.
be just fine.
Sure.
So I'm furiously writing these numbers down, but it's not going to mean anything to me in about
No problem.
an hour.
Yeah.
Could you just go over what happened with the facilities, whatever you call it, that went out?
The assessment? Sure, so the facilities committee and Dave Sharple, who works with that committee as staff, put together, I believe it was an RFQ with
Yeah,
a
RFQ,
scope
that's what it
of
was.
services, and the response to complete all of the services that they had hoped was a little bit more expensive than they would prefer. So instead, they're trying to reevaluate the scope of services and potentially put that back out to bid.
Step in there.
Yes, please, thank you.
I'm the select board rep to the facilities committee, and what happened was the warrant article was approved at 45,000, and we did do an RFP.
RFP,
For that to bid, and and it was for looking at almost all of the buildings in town, with their structural integrity, safety codes,
Mechanical.
that kind of thing. The bids came back between 250,000 and 600,000. So,
Wow.
scaled down.
Swing and a miss.
Are you kidding me?
Thank you, Julie, for that update, Ed?
Oh,
Yeah, sure. So thinking about these estimates and so on, conceivably, I'm thinking inflation could have been a factor if it was materials-based, but then I'm thinking, is it a multi-year effort? Are you thinking possibly you could maybe do some of the, just what would be like practical, like how much can you do with this amount of money, not putting a constraint? Because I don't know the number of buildings, for instance, that you're referring to, and I imagine it's more than one.
Well, there's a
but-
lot, and like this building, a lot of them are aged, and I think there was just a disconnect between the needs and the wants, so
Right,
to
and-
speak.
And that's what we're doing right now is narrowing the scope, so it won't be
Right.
Nice.
600,000. And that bid came from a company in Florida, so I'm assuming some of it was travel-related costs. But it wasn't any physical labor.
Sure.
Anything else, Judy? That's it?
thanks, that was,
Okay. Any other questions for Corey or Melissa? Thank you very much for that summary. Okay.
Do you want to hear about where we are FY '22 year-to-date, or?
yes.
Only if it's good.
Sure. Yeah, not much we can do about it, but sure.
I want to hear
Always
good
good
news.
There
today.
is, no, there isn't, it is rearview mirror. So results as of June 30th. So general fund, we have an overall operating budget of 20.4 million for the year. We have spending of 8.6 million, or 42% of the overall budget. This is directly in line with spending from the prior year. The reason we're below 50 is timing, as you can imagine, within departments, but also our debt service payments. We don't make principal payments until the second part of the year, by and large. Therefore, those budgets, and those are large numbers, will bring the budget more in line. We also have some open positions between the various general fund departments, and that is a continued struggle, as it was last year, to fill. And then you just have timing of expenses. But nothing after my mid-year review is sticking out as a, red flag at this point within general fund. On the revenue side, our motor vehicle and building permits are down for about $120,000 in revenue this year, so far year to date, yes. Building permits, we have more of them, but the cost of construction value in the prior year was higher than it is so far this year.
Really?
Water fund operating budget for the year is 4.2 million. We've spent 1.6, or 37%, as of 6/30, which is again directly in line with last year's results. Even bigger debt service, playing into that, payments towards the end of the year. Staffing also an issue between water and sewer. Between the two, they have 6 open positions right now. Finally, sewer fund, it's a $7.4 million annual budget. We've spent 1.3 million, 17%, same as last year. Debt service is even bigger, as the chair pointed out earlier. We have a $4 million wastewater treatment principal. I believe it's just principal payment that comes due towards the end of the year. So, that budget's going to get gobbled up pretty quick. On the revenue side for sewer, operating revenue is up $440,000. As you may recall, last summer we had a rate increase of about 20%, 19.8 actually. So our sewer usage revenue is up consequently.
Can I break in there for just a second? Well, we're not public, but we're not on TV, but if we were on TV, people might say, well, geez Louise, you got a lot of money coming in on sewer income, but that's the build-up towards the payments, presumably, the debt payments, correct?
Yeah, there's a little bit of a
Mismatch
There's about a
there.
6-month, offset.
Disconnect.
We pay that, I think it's in December, right? Or it's
That's right.
Toward the end of the year.
Yep.
So we sort of have to build up the fund
Exactly.
all year round, so it can get fairly large, and then 4
boom,
million
out it
goes
goes.
out in December.
So that's my take on it. So that's a fair take on it.
60% of the sewer budget is that one payment.
Is that what?
And so we have to plan for
Yeah.
that. And water, we've done a number of facilities in the last few years, so
Yeah.
their debt service is getting up there as well.
Yeah.
Are there increased number of users, or, I know like Ray Farm, I think one of their buildings came on, right?
I think that the consumption has been fairly stable.
Mhm.
As, we all know, in the last couple of years, a lot of people have been home that maybe weren't normally home during the day. So I think that there's a little bit more consumption than normal, especially in the summer. But nothing out of the ordinary.
Is the, what's the word I should use? The revenue generated in terms of the fees meeting the projections of what's needed to meet the expenses of the bonds and the expenses of running the system?
Yeah, I mean, we can sidebar that, yeah. So we increased the rates last year. And
Yeah.
generally, the model that we had, I think it was about 8 years ago, the company we hired to construct the model
Yeah.
recommended that we adjust rates. They never said increase
Yeah.
rates, but adjust them. They never go down.
Yeah.
Roughly every year, even if it's only like 1%, so that you can keep up with,
Yeah.
with various increases in costs. And we're going to be fortunate this year not to have to do that, because we took a real hard look at it last year, tried to plan ahead, and just Monday night, Russ had suggested to the board that we actually take, I think it was 50,000 out of reserves. $50,000 out of reserves, a fairly small amount compared to the reserves in the budget, just to sort of smooth things over so that we don't have to do a rate increase this year. So he didn't think that we would have to do anything on rates until next spring at the earliest.
Good.
So I thought that was pretty good.
I can't tell you for sure if the revenue will meet budget needs at the end of the year, but I can tell you that because I can't remember the numbers now, but I believe the bottom line revenue is tracking just like it was last year. So
Mhm.
if there's any indication.
Yeah, good.
Okay, any other questions?
I did have another question, if you don't mind. Energy costs relative to what we projected or budgeted. And I know the electric, but I don't know if we're locked in as a town or not. So just any comments related to energy costs?
So
Heating, fuel?
I don't have the answer to that right now.
Big picture.
I would expect that we're probably going to see an increase, as we're all sort of seeing.
Yeah.
But we can certainly get that number for you
Yeah.
for the next meeting.
Are most of our energy costs, as we budgeted them, locked in?
Yes.
Yeah,
That's what I would have thought.
yeah.
It's a third-party resale.
Yeah.
The supply. and
So there
that's
shouldn't
locked
be
in
any
there.
great shocks to the budget, the
For
budget,
this
year's
one,
budget.
right, yeah. For next year,
Yeah.
I have to look to see what year the contracts go up. That's what
Yeah, yeah.
that's why I wasn't sure.
Yeah, no, I was just curious
Yeah.
about how this year is going to finish out.
Should be okay.
Yeah.
And as Corey pointed out, we have so many positions open and available that the budgets have a way of,
Yeah.
sort of figuring out the
Yeah.
energy costs.
Yeah.
Not the way you'd like to do it, but
Yeah.
it ends up working out. Okay, did everyone receive the add-ons that I had provided in the emails with the meeting dates and the various
I
subcommittee
didn't bring them with me, but
discussions?
yeah.
The meeting dates have been, for the most part, QC'd by Pam and Russ, but there may be some very minor changes. But in general, it follows the format from previous years. At the end of September, we'll be having our official kickoff of the budget. It will be given to us a few days earlier than that. And then Russ will go through the various items, how it's set up, anything that we may be looking at for this coming year of note. And we'll also talk about the subcommittees, And peripheral vision is still, still. So then we have that all-day meeting with general government, third week in October, and for Ed and for Andy, basically, we all meet here, starting at 8:30. The town does provide lunch for us. It's a working session all day long. Generally, we've been out a little earlier than 4:30 in the past few years, more like, I think last year we were out at 2 or something. We were brutally efficient last year. And then the other meetings are in the evening, in this room, beginning at 6:30, and they basically follow the list of the various departments as shown. Hopefully, everyone is able to clear their calendar. We do need a quorum to make decisions and that sort of thing. So a quorum would be 7 people. So we need to make sure that we, it's a fairly short effort here from the end of September to the middle of November. So hopefully everyone can make the commitment that you signed up for. Ed?
Yes, Bob. General interest question again for newbie. I noticed there's so many, members of this general government. I was wondering if you could provide some context and talk about maybe which have been around the longest, which have branched off from something, if any, just because there's so much history in this town, and I want to learn about, has this grown much? How did it grow? If you have time, there's just a lot in
Well,
there.
Russ will be going over that in September.
Gotcha.
But the reason why there's so many in general government, many of these are fairly small departments.
Uh-huh.
And the budgets are relatively small, and so we sort of pile them all together, and they go very quickly. Anna is the chair and right now the only committee member, and it'd be great if one of the two of you could assist her in that. Nancy and she have done a great job over the years with going through this. Unfortunately, with the number of departments, it requires a lot of time meeting with them in the lead up, mostly in September and early October to get the department's take on things. But
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll follow up with her, in the next week and
that'd be great.
schedule something.
That'd be
Awesome.
excellent. So Russell will talk about how each of those departments, and there's a nice little write-up in the budget notebook that we get about each of those departments and what they do and that sort of thing. You'll see, again, down toward at the bottom on November 17th, we'll have our CIP meeting. As always, we have asked or in previous years, have the subcommittees address their CIP items. We would not vote on them at their individual subcommittee meetings in October and early November, but, just to give people sort of a heads up as to the way the subcommittee is thinking and what the issues and that sort of thing. And then we vote on the actual CIP items on November 17th. As I mentioned, because the public safety complex is, our next big project in town that we're undertaking, a lot of detail to it, and we'll be having probably a separate meeting earlier in October to give us some of the details about that. So a number of years ago, we were surprised with a few of the projects that sort of got thrown in our lap at the last minute, and we were not able to adequately review them, so we're changing that approach a little bit. As I had mentioned, I don't know if anyone has thought about switching subcommittees or if they're happy with where they were from last year. I didn't necessarily hear from anybody, but if you are going to change, let me know, because right now we're sort of lean. We're a few people short on this committee, so at the most, each subcommittee is going to have 2 people. So if people want to change, let me know. But as of now, I'm assuming that the lineup is as is. What I was going to do, and I don't know if Andrew, you had any interest in this, Corey did the DPW general, which is highway and solid waste and that sort of thing, stormwater, by himself last year. I've done it in the past with him as well. So that subcommittee is vacant, and I would be willing to work with you on that if you had an interest.
Definitely.
So,
Yep, that works for me.
think about that, and then Ed, if you could work with Anna on the general government, that would be awesome. I think that would really take care, and then Ton, you and I would work just on water and sewer. I think Judy, I'll let you and Kathy pretty much do police and fire. I didn't really need to be part of that. You guys had that locked down from last year, so, and I think we're in good shape. And then Chris and Liz will work on.
Chris and Chris.
I'm sorry?
Is it Chris and Chris and Liz?
Chris and Liz, that's right. Right. Forgot about that, thank you. But yeah, certainly feel free to mull it over. You don't need to commit tonight, but over the next few weeks. But certainly by that September meeting, I'd like to have the subcommittees in place. And I will probably be getting going before that, before the budget's even out, just talking to people. And so there'll need to be that communication. And I think, any other questions about the procedures and schedule and all of that? I think that's pretty much covered everything. Nothing? Okay then. Any comments from the assistant town manager and
No,
finance
just
director?
thank you for everybody's time. I know this is a committee that takes a lot of effort and a lot of time, so we really do appreciate it.
You want to say anything? Probably not.
No.
Yes? Would you like to? Sure. I should have had you up front, but I sort of.
You know, Bob, you were so efficient to get this done. I think I'll take the next 10 minutes. No. You know,
Well played.
having served on this committee for many years and serving as chair, this is a committee that's very near and dear to my heart. And on behalf of the select board, I want to thank and express our gratitude for all of the work and for volunteering to do the work in the next couple of months. This is incredibly valuable work, not only for the select board, but for the community. Reviewing the budget, vetting the budget, and making your recommendations to the select board, because certainly it makes our job a lot easier to recommend a budget to the community. So thank you all for volunteering and taking the time to do this. And as the chair said, the public safety complex in some form or another will be presented to you, and that will be a big ticket item. It's something that's going to hopefully add value to our community for decades. So it's going to be interesting to see how that process plays out, and we look forward to hearing your recommendations. And lastly, just, to reiterate what Corey and Melissa said, the problem that we're facing here in Exeter with personnel is not exclusive to Exeter, New Hampshire. It's happening across the country with municipalities. It's very hard to retain and hire good personnel, given the economy and given the fact that people can go out and make a lot more money. So part of the select board's goals and objectives this year was to, evaluate the departments and reclassify when appropriate. So when you're looking at particularly salary and wages, keep in mind on money spent that we do have openings, particularly in public works, water and sewer, but we have openings widespread, and that may have affected, what money has been spent. But also, we have been working, the select board has been working on reclassifying positions when it's been appropriate to do so that we can hire and retain good talent. So with that, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Nico. Appreciate your words, and also I appreciate the select board's support of our recommendations, and fairly a straightforward discussion last year. Probably one of the easiest segues from budget review to approval that I've been involved with. So thank you again for your guys' time. Okay, seeing no other comments or questions, we will adjourn until Wednesday, September 28th in this room at 6:30.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.